Started here. Let's get the video stuff fired up. I think we got her up and running here. If you want to follow along on video, usually just the first segment of the show, the first few minutes, I open up the camera and allow you to follow along that way. If you go to our website, newsradio1029.com, hover over the on-demand tab there, you can click on that. You'll see there's a little drop down that will pop up and say Karn TV. Click on that. You can watch it there, or just go to Twitter and follow us on the KARN Twitter page there as well. So as we do get into the discussion today of what you ought to know, there's, of course, a lot of talk as the possibilities of a VP pick coming soon are starting to heat up. Many politicians and influential people within the Republican Party are being floated and are doing their best to get noticed as a potential VP pick. Who would it be is, of course, the big question. For one of the questions I do want to ask you today is, who would you pick? J.D. Vance has been bandied about out of Ohio. Governor Doug Burgum out of North Dakota. Of course, the governor of South Dakota as well, being suggested as a potential VP pick, Kristi Noem there. Of course, many people have talked about Ron DeSantis and Vivek Ramaswamy, fellow competitors on the nomination front when they were running for president, and so on. So we can get into that discussion. But one of the things that I kind of want to talk about, because J.D. Vance, there was a big article on Breitbart, I believe, today, suggesting Senator J.D. Vance out of Ohio as a possible presidential pick for former President Trump. Of course, Byron Donaldson out of Florida, Representative Anna Paulina Luna. I always mess up her name. Anna Paulina Luna, a representative out of Florida, also being bandied about as a potential pick. And here's one of the things that I hope Donald Trump and his team have talked about. I'm sure they have. I mean, they've got political strategists up and down the aisle and in and out of every room and back room and discussion in all of D.C. and all across America. But I genuinely hope they are not considering pulling someone out of the Senate or pulling someone out of the House to fill that role. It is, in my opinion, the House and the Senate both way too close at this point to be pulling any Republican support out of either chamber of Congress to be the VP. Pulling someone out of the House potentially risks turning the House over to Democratic control, which would absolutely hamstring anything Donald Trump does and likely open him up to continued impeachment attempts throughout the entirety of his presidency. I guarantee you, if the House is taken over by the Democrat Party come November, I guarantee you the first course of action when the new Congress takes over is to impeach Donald Trump for being a convicted felon. That will be their first order of business. The Republicans have been too lazy or too cowardly or too something to do anything about going after Joe Biden. But Donald Trump, I promise you, if the House is taken over by the Democrat Party, I promise you Donald Trump will be impeached at least once, probably multiple times. And, of course, it will go nowhere in the Senate, but it will be nothing but a waste of time and effort by everyone on all sides. So my argument would be, do not pick a representative, as good as some of them would be. Byron Donaldson, I think, is a good guy. I think Senator Tim Scott would be a good option. There are several that could make potentially quality vice presidents. But the problem is they are too important in Congress right now for them to be turned over to the very real potential of a Democratic control. And of course, with the Senate being literally 50-50, it would not take much to take over the Senate. We'd only have to pick up a seat or two, and if we pick up one and then lose one to the vice presidency, we're back in the exact same place that we were before. The only difference was now is that you'd have in the Senate, you would have a Republican vice president to break any ties, and would then also give the chairmanships of the various committees to Republican Party members. But that's my opinion. If I were President Trump, if I were his team, I would not be choosing anyone out of Congress to be the vice president. Texter says, I wish I could talk to Trump. If he picks Burgum, he risks losing. He needs to tap Tim Scott to make sense all around. Yeah, as a guy who lived under Governor Burgum's leadership in the state of North Dakota, Governor Burgum is not a bad person. I actually voted for him in the general election, but I voted against him in both primaries that he ran in because I had no desire to see him as the governor. But he's not a bad person, and he's not a bad Republican. I just don't think he is a great conservative, and I don't think he will be. I don't think he will be much of a bastion of stability for the Trump administration. He's a big tech guy. He's friends with Bill Gates. He made his billions of dollars in the tech world. He owned a software company that I think he sold out to Microsoft for a couple $1 billion, and then became an executive within Microsoft under Bill Gates as part of the deal and all that kind of stuff. And I just don't think Doug Burgum is the right guy for the job. I really do not. I don't think he's a bad person. I don't think he's a bad guy. I just think he's a terrible choice for VP. I would prefer somebody like a Vivek Ramaswamy, who is kind of outside the political class, who's outside the Washington swamp. I wouldn't mind seeing even somebody like a Kristi Noem or Ron DeSantis, who are outside of Washington, who are not connected to the congressional swamp specifically. I just don't think that would be a good choice in any way, shape, or form. Because if he loses control of either one of those bodies, it is going to hamstring him for nearly the entirety of his presidency. Another texter said he needs Sarah Sanders. Arkansas will replace her with another Republican. That's not an incorrect summary, right? I mean, if Sarah Sanders resigns, I believe the Leslie Rutledge, the former Attorney General, now Lieutenant Governor, would take over as the governor. And then she would, I believe, get to appoint her lieutenant governor. So, it certainly, I'm not sure that she's the most likable, most electable kind of candidate. One texter says Candace Owens. I like Candace Owens. I feel like she's gotten a little bit too full of herself recently. I feel like she's kind of become a little bit more about Candace Owens than anything else. And I think that's just a problem in general. She does not come across, unfortunately, as likable as she used to. I think Candace Owens, she kind of rode the stardom and the star power of her virality back during the first Trump administration, and I think it kind of got to her head. I think she's gotten a little bit egotistical in my opinion. Now, I might be wrong because I don't follow Candace Owens that closely. So that is in all honesty, that is a kind of an outside viewpoint of Candace Owens because I don't follow her, like I said, as closely as maybe I should. But that's just the sense that I get from her, and so I would kind of steer away from Candace Owens. I think there are better other potential candidates than her. So with that, we got more to talk about. We'll get into of course, a listener brought this up, sent me a message on Facebook Marketplace about the news coverage of the attack ad by Joe Biden. So we'll get into that because that's an interesting discussion as well. And then the Nashville journalist that released or revealed some of the writings of the school shooter there in Nashville a year ago is now facing potential jail time. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then, of course, the CNN and their general ignorance about the history and construction of the United States governmental structure. So we'll get into all of that and a whole lot more as we continue next on News Radio 1029 KARN.